So a couple days after the Supreme Court voted down Trump's tariffs, he made a new announcement. Tariffs are going up to 15%. Headlines make it seem like the other countries are going to pay for that, but that's not really how it works. If you own a business that buys materials or products or inventory from overseas, this applies to you. So in this video, I'm going to break down what tariffs will actually do to you and your business and how you can prepare for them, because this matters. A tariff is a tax that's placed on imported goods, and it's paid for at the port by U.S. importers, not by the foreign country. So basically what happens is the U.S. company orders the product, it gets to the port. The U.S. importer is going to pay the tax at the time that it arrives at that port, and it becomes a part of your cost of goods sold. So as you're paying for these products that are coming into the United States, your costs for those products increase. So you have to then decide, how is that cost going to be absorbed? Are you going to eat that 15%, or are you going to pass it on to your customer? If your gross profits aren't high enough to be able to absorb that 15%, you might be tight, and you may be looking at a situation where you might start to lose money on that product. This is another reason why it's so important as a small business owner to know your numbers. You need to be able to understand what your cost of goods sold is so that you can make sure that you're going to maintain that profit level that you need in order to survive. So the question is, who actually feels the pain of these tariffs? Retailers that are bringing in product from overseas, contractors buying materials that are imported, manufacturing companies that are using these materials, or e-commerce companies that are importing products from particularly Asia. In order to be able to understand how this is going to affect your business, it's imperative that you know what your numbers look like. If you don't have a good understanding of your cost of goods sold, it's impossible for you to know. And because of the delayed effects of these tariffs, your inventory costs increasing may take a while to start to show up in your profit and loss statement. Don't forget, as you purchase inventory, it's not a direct expense. Inventory is a balance sheet item. So that's going onto your balance sheet. It doesn't become an expense until you actually sell the product. If you're slow to react to this and you're not increasing your pricing, you're going to then start eating that cost. And as that inventory moves over to your profit and loss statement as cost of goods sold, you're going to start to lose money. But by then, it may be too late. That's why it's so important to know what those products cost you, down to a single unit, so that if you have to absorb a 15% tariff, how does that affect your pricing? For example, if I have a manufacturing company and one of the components that go into my product is going to be subject to these 15% tariffs, that doesn't mean that my total cost of that product is going up by 15%. It means that it's going to go up, but only on that one component. So as a business owner and as the owner of that manufacturing company, I need to be able to understand how to calculate my new cost of goods sold. If I'm selling a widget that has one particular component within it that is subject to that tariff, what is my total cost going to increase? And is the margin that's left after that cost sufficient enough to continue to run my operation? If it's not, then my price has to go up. It doesn't mean it has to go up by 15%. It just means it has to go up enough to cover the additional 15% on that one component. However, if I'm a retailer and I'm just reselling a product and I'm not manufacturing it, then the entire cost of that product is going up 15%. So if I was paying $100 for that product, it's now going to be $115. So if I was selling that product for $120 and making a $20 per unit profit, now my profit's only $5. So what do I need to do to my sale price in order to be able to maintain a $20 margin? Those are the decisions you need to be able to make as a business owner, but if you don't understand your numbers, you're never going to be able to make those decisions. So if you do understand your numbers and you do understand the impact that it's going to have on your costs, what do? You have to face the decision of whether or not to increase your pricing to be able to pass that cost on to your customer, whether your margins may be good enough to just eat that 15%. As a manufacturing company in my last example, if that one component part is just a small minor part that's not going to actually move the needle much, maybe I'm just going to eat that cost and just keep my customers happy. I think too often as a business owner, particularly a small business owner, we hesitate to increase our pricing because, we don't want to lose the business. We don't want to upset our customers. And a lot of times in a small business, we become close friends with our customers. We deal with the same people every day. So we don't really want to raise the price and cause an issue. And sometimes it's easier for us in our head to just eat it. The problem is most of us are buying our products from these large companies, these large corporations that frankly don't care about us. They're not they're not afraid to raise their price. So what ends up happening to small businesses is we continue to get squeezed. We don't want to raise our price to our customers, but our suppliers are raising their prices on us. So our margins get smaller and smaller and smaller. And by the time that we decide this isn't working anymore, it's gotten so tight that a lot of businesses don't survive, or they have to raise prices so much to compensate that then you're going to upset your customer. So it's smart to understand those numbers and maybe do it small in increments as our costs continue to rise, and then it's less of a burden on our end customer. You have to face facts. You're a business owner. You're not a charity. You're here to make money. And I understand, and trust me, I'm guilty of not wanting to raise our price to our customer. But as you continue to get squeezed, it's going to drive you out of business. And this is your livelihood. You can't just keep eating it. Eventually, you're going to end up going out of business. So you have to adjust your pricing as necessary. And my suggestion to you is to do it a little bit at a time as those costs go up so that you don't end up in such a bad condition that you have to raise your prices so much that then you're going to create backlash from your customers. The other thing you have to consider with this is your competitive advantage, right? Your competition. If your competition is out there and they're buying their products domestically, then they may not be subject to these tariffs, which means now you're going to have to increase your prices, and it may end up setting your price higher than your competition because you're buying that foreign imported good. Then you have to face the decision of, am I going to eat that cost? Am I going to try to negotiate with my supplier? Or maybe you need to start looking at domestic suppliers. Ultimately is probably what Trump's goal is here, right? These tariffs are not necessarily designed for a revenue generator. They're designed to try to force manufacturers to try to come back into the United States. Whether you agree or disagree with the tariffs, whether you're a fan of Trump or not, that's not what this video is about. I'm not telling you whether they're good or bad. I'm trying to explain to you what's happening and how you as a business owner need to adapt. Let's face it, this isn't about politics. It's about math. It's about survival. As a business owner every day, we're just trying to survive. We're trying to make a profit so that we can continue to survive. And if you don't make these tough decisions, you won't. So you have an understanding of what a tariff is, and you're a business owner. So what do you do now to adapt? Well, first of all, you need to review those supplier contracts, and you need to perhaps negotiate with those suppliers and say, hey, listen, I can't eat all this 15% tariff. You're going to have to work with me. What can I do to bring my costs down? There may be things that you can do with those suppliers to bring those costs down, whether it's purchase in larger quantities, whether it's maybe some sort of exclusivity deal, but there might be a way for you to work with those suppliers to bring that cost down so that you're not the only one eating that 15%. You also have to really do a deep dive and audit your pricing. Look at your competition. Consider what your customers are going to be willing to pay. Is a 10%, 5%, 15% increase in the price of the product that you're selling going to drive customers away from you? As a small business owner, I think that we're always the last one to want to raise prices. And by the time we do, even though we have this fear that our customers are all going to be running for the hills, it doesn't usually work out that way. Usually our customers are just anticipating it and ready for that increase, and we're just the last ones to do it. The other thing that you can do is to start looking at new suppliers. Consider buying domestically. Is there a company that's within the United States that's making that product at a reasonable cost? Maybe it's a little bit more than the 15%, but I've seen a lot of companies that have been able to advertise that all of their products are made here in the United States, and it helps them. So perhaps having a product that is manufactured in the United States uh, and all the components of it are manufactured in the United States might help your sales. It might attract a new buyer that is looking for an American made product. Those are the tough questions that you need to ask, and you really need to do your own market research to decide what fits best in your business. The other thing you can do, now that we know that this 15% tariff is probably coming, is to lock in your inventory costs now. If you've got the cash on hand that you can maybe purchase a large quantity of that inventory now and lock in that price, then maybe now's the time to do it. I've got clients that knew that this was coming, so they started buying up and stockpiling that inventory at the lower price point. Because face it, your competition that maybe not ahead of the curve like this, they're going to be paying that higher cost. So they're going to be forced to raise prices. Maybe you can buy yourself a little bit of time by stockpiling that inventory, that you can steal some of that market share, maintaining your lower price point while your competition reacts late and have to raise their prices before you do. And you can ride that lower price for a while with that reduced inventory cost and steal some of that market share from your customer. So staying on top of this and making sure that you understand what's going on before it actually even happens can give you a new competitive advantage that your competition doesn't really understand. And here's the deal. Whether you agree with the tariffs or you don't, you like Donald Trump or you don't, none of that matters. As a business owner, it's not about policy. It's not about whether you agree with something. It doesn't matter what you think. If it's coming, it's coming. What you need to do as a business owner is you need to adapt. Don't fall behind the eight ball while your competition is out there getting ahead of you and stealing your market share because maybe they stockpiled on that inventory. Understanding how the system actually works is what will get you the competitive advantage over everybody else. Make sure you click like and subscribe to this video if this helped you, and I'll have more videos coming out every week. So thank you very much.